Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May, and this is Getting Started with Technical Analysis. And today we're going to be talking about using volume as a short-term trading tool. We're going to be getting an introduction to something known as the volume profile, and it's going to be new to some of you. We're going to talk about the structure of it and how it might be used in the planning of a short-term stock trade. Should be a great discussion. I'm looking forward to it. If you want to chat and let me know, have you used the volume profile tool before? Might be very interesting to see that. But hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Great to see Carol and Speak Truth, Life in the Fast Lane, Ken, Robert, everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. We always do appreciate your attendance and your contributions to these discussions. If you're here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the fact, if you're just watching the recording for this session, enjoy the presentation, but be aware that you're invited to join us in a live discussion. It does kick off promptly 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday afternoons. And, you know, as we get into this, the first thing that I would like to do is issue an invitation to you. If you're not following me on that platform, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, please do that. It's a great resource. Doesn't cost anything to follow me, but it's the best place to connect with me in between these live streams. So to follow me there on X, it's just at Cameron May, CS for Charles Schwab. So I'd love to have you there. And if you reply to one of my posts, I just try to reply right back to you. Great opportunity to connect with me in between the discussions. But let's get right into it. Very first thing that we want to make sure that we're aware of is that risk is real. Yeah. So we're not going to be discussing options today, but for some options traders, they do use indicators like the volume profile. So we need to be aware that options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Having success in one's paper money account is not a guarantee that they're going to have success with our real funds because market conditions do change and they can change rapidly. The information here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research, and investing involves risks, including the loss of principal. All right. So today, we're going to be getting acquainted with a new tool for some of you on the thinkorswim platform known as the volume profile. So anytime I introduce a new tool, I try to go at a pace that everybody can follow. So we're going to talk about the basic construction of the volume profile. We're going to get acquainted with its appearance, what the different elements of the profile might imply for the trader. And then we're going to talk about how it might be used to generate buy and sell signals. And then finally, we're just going to get some repetition with that, looking at the volume profile on a series of different charts for different time frames so that we can really let this new knowledge sink in so that we're all comfortable, hopefully, by the end of today's discussion with the construction and the potential for application for the volume profile in the planning of a short-term stock trade. All right? So hello there, Nirmal and Dragon Rider and David. Thanks for joining us today, Kevin. You too. Great to see everybody. All right. Well, let's go right to the platform. The very first thing that I would like to do, just to give a little bit of context to today's discussion, is have a quick peek at the S&P 500. Not going to spend much time on it at all. However, as of this moment, yeah, the S&P, we've been having a great trailing 12 months. Obviously, with the clear exception of late July to late October, not the best time for stock investors, but boy, since then, stocks have just been pressing higher and higher. And those bullish conditions, even including the last couple of days of selling on the S&P 500, for some technicians, they may see this as just a continued bull market condition. So a lot of the discussion that we're going to be having today is going to be held within the framework of a bullish outlook. Now, that does not mean that the markets can't just turn right around and start coming down, and a lot of stocks can go right on down with them. But yeah, the S&P still hovering right up very near those all-time highs that we set just a week ago. Matter of fact, on Friday, we were right close to those all-time highs again. So right up there, you know, within a percentage point or so of all-time highs. All right, so let's introduce our indicator. And to begin our discussion, I think what we'll do here is just use some of the biggest companies out there in the US or in the domestic marketplace. How about we start off with Microsoft? So here's Microsoft, and what we're looking right now is just pure price. What has price been doing over time? And for some technicians, they refer to, you know, this is a phrase that sometimes used, price is king, right? Maybe for some that might be adequate for making trading decisions, but for others they like to incorporate an element of volume. And it's possible that volume might provide insights into areas that are comparatively more or less, quote unquote, important on a chart. So wouldn't it be nice if we just had volume to show us those indicators? Well, that is one of the underlying motivations for the construction of this thing known as the volume profile. Let's add volume profile to our chart. So the quick way to do that is come up here to our studies flask. I'm going to click on that. We could just go down in alphabetical order down to the V's and find a volume profile right there. Another thing that we could do is do a keyword search. So we just type in volume P. Now notice as we type in the word volume, lots of indicators include the word volume in them. Just throwing a P on the end there narrows it down to just the volume profile tool. And we're going to add that to our chart. Okay. Now, as we do that, it's already giving us some insight into the construction here. I'm not going to worry too much about this. It's a fairly complicated indicator. However, the application, conceptually at least, can be fairly straightforward. And this is a webcast called Getting Started with Technical Analysis, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds. So let's click Apply and click OK. And as I do this, let me throw that question out there once again. How many of you have actually used this tool before? The volume profile tool. I already see Kevin saying, yes, use the volume profile. And Kevin says he makes some customizations. This, like so many other technical indicators, is customizable. I'm probably not going to be doing any customizations. Time permitting, maybe one toward the end. But we're just going to try to keep it as simple as possible today. Okay, so let's go through the basic elements of our volume profile. Okay, the first thing that you might notice, you could notice a number of things, but there's a purple area here, okay? That purple area, and how about we outline this over here? These are notes for another webcast series. You don't have to worry about those. But a few things to keep in mind is that the purple area is known as the value area, okay? What is that value area? Well, here's what the volume profile is doing. It's looking back over the time frame that we've selected, and that's an important thing to understand. It's, in this case, we have a 1 year, 1 day chart of Microsoft. So it's looking back over the last 1 year. And what it's done is thrown an upper range and a lower range around. That's interesting. I shut down that application. I don't know why I got that notification. In any case, it's showing us a range where 70% of all of the volume for our selected time frame has happened. Okay, so in other words, if we were to draw a line or a box, let's use a box. If I were to draw a box around this area for this time frame, 70% of this year's trading has happened inside this box. Okay, and actually there have been peaks of activity within that 70% range. So we're going to talk about that. But this is just generally known as the volume area. As the value area. Okay, so now we'll also note that it has, and to some technicians this can be quite important, the value area high, sometimes abbreviated to VAH. So we have the value area high. And of course, just the opposite, the value area low, VAL. And that's just making direct reference to the upper and lower bands of this 70% range. Staying within that range can theoretically be important to some traders. Getting outside of that range could also carry some theoretical or potential importance, and we'll talk about that. Okay. Carol says, what is today's trading activity forecast for tomorrow, Cam? Isn't that the question that all technical traders are really trying to ask of themselves? Yeah, and this indicator is one of hundreds that might be used. Now, just because we're discussing the volume profile today doesn't mean that, I consider this to be the best indicator out there. We just have a number of indicators that are available on thinkorswim, and I take them I introduce them one at a time. We break them apart, understand how they work, how they might be applied to the planning of a trade, and then go through some examples. So it's an educational experience to get one acquainted with the tools that are at one's disposal. And then it's always up to that self-directed investor to make the decisions for which they may choose to use, if they use any down the line. Okay. All right. So value area high is just this line up here. Value area low is this line down here. Now let's turn our attention to these green bars. Yeah, it looks like we took a histogram chart, which is the charts that are just these long bars, tilted it on its side, and each one of these are variously called nodes. It's a weird word to me, nodes, but that's what they're called, nodes. They're just bars. And the length of the bars shows the relative amount of volume that happened at the price level that we're looking at. So for example, if we look at the heaviest volume here, you'll notice that was between maybe $337 on the upside, maybe down to $328 to the downside. This range right here, and if we were to narrow this, let's remove our drawing and draw it in so that it intersects with those three longest, what we might call nodes. You'll notice right there are quite a few candles, quite a bit of trading that happened even within that narrow range. Now, there are other places where there was comparatively little trading. So, for example, if you look at this area right here, where we have a very low volume node, now that's a mouthful, isn't it? Well, that just reflects the fact that there are basically only 2 days of trading, comparatively low total volume. If you add up all the volume of those 2 days, not much happening there. Whereas here, we had dozens and dozens of days of trading falling within this range. So we have high volume nodes. This is another thing that a trader might want to make note of. We have high volume nodes. And we have low volume nodes. Okay. And both of those can have importance for the planning of a trade, but surprisingly, it may actually be the low volume that might be most important. That might be a little bit counterintuitive, but it's interesting. Now, the final thing that I want to point out here is something known as the POC. POC is the point of control. And that is, do you see this red line right here? What this is identifying for us is sort of the center of mass for all the trade. And right in the middle where the most trading appeared to have happened seems to have been right about here. It's really coincident with the highest volume node on the chart for the time frame that we've selected. Okay, so those are your basic elements of this indicator. Agariba says, already, look at that. Look how quickly some people are connecting the dots. Agariba says, on those low or high, could that be used as support or resistance? You're exactly onto something there. That is it. That is possibly the most common application of this indicator. So we just spent, 10 minutes getting acquainted with the construction of the indicator. And yeah, there's some new vocabulary. If one wants to memorize that stuff, believe me, I even have to give myself a little bit of a refresher on exactly, okay, we call these nodes. I don't care. Call them bars. That works just as well for me. The value area high and the value area low, do you think that's actually going on in my head as I'm looking at this chart? Nope, I'm looking at, well, is it inside the purple or outside the purple? Is it at a high point or at a low point? Yeah, okay. But I feel that I would be remiss as an educator to not at least go through the basic elements of this indicator, okay? So now that we understand this, do we want to leave that on the screen? Might as well, it fits. We'll just leave it on there. But let's shift gears now into discussing how a trader might use this in the planning of a short-term stock trade. Okay, and yes, Agariba, what commonly investors are looking for here, or traders are looking for here, are for support and resistance areas to set up actually at or around the low nodes, the low volume nodes. When there's high volume, that's actually typically right in the center of a lot of trading. That means there may be a lot of buying and a lot of selling happening at the same time. It may mean that the buyers and sellers are relatively at a point of balance, a point of control, POC. And price may go either up from there or might go down from there. And generally, the assumption is whichever direction it was headed as it gets to the point of control, it might continue on up in that direction until it reaches a low node. So why is it that the low nodes might act as support and resistance levels rather than the heavy volume trading high volume nodes? Well, when there's not a lot of volume historically at a specific level, it may not take a lot of new volume to change the direction of the stock. And so for some traders, they may see this as we hit those low mass areas, that may be a reversal point. Sometimes it can result in a reversal in the opposite direction, or it may kick off a move in a new direction. Okay, so let's look at this. For example, if one is attempting to trade bullishly, and we see price coming down toward a low node range, that may signal that we might be at or near an area of support. So in that case, as we're approaching that low node area, a trader might be looking to take a new position, a new bullish position. Okay. Now, as we move up toward a low node area on the upper end of a range, that may be time to start harvesting some profits, at least conceptually. Am I saying that this is going to work every single time? Of course, I'm not saying that. Brent says, are we talking about volume or volatility? And Brent, sometimes those things are so intertwined. It's hard to sort of parse those out into separate concepts, right? But specifically, we're talking about volume in this case. Total trading activity at a prescribed price. And as a matter of fact, if we want to get very specific, the size of the histogram, the size of the node, the length of the node here is determined by the height of the node and the amount of volume of trading that happened within that range. So here I'm going to have to get a little bit more specific. I might need to zoom in a little bit more. So let's switch up our time frame. And when we switch time frames, it does change the construction of our nodes a little bit, okay? But let's come up here to our date. I'm going to go to time frame. And how about we switch our time to just, instead of a year, let's go to last month and click OK. And now as we do that, notice what will happen. Right now, our value area is below the current price, right? Because most of the trading over the last 12 months happened below where we are right now. Probably 10%, 15% has happened just in the last 6 or 8 weeks. But as we click OK and we change this to a 1-month chart, our value area now is right just slightly above, as a matter of fact, the current price. Yeah, it shifts. And now it's showing us where 70% of trading, 70% of volume has happened over the last month. Okay, but I did want to point out here, just talking about the node, we can see here is our new point of control. That's this area right here. And it's coincident with the highest volume node right there. Now, pardon me. If we look at the height, so not the horizontal length, but the thickness of that node, okay? You'll notice it goes from about $405 with a little bit of rounding. We'll call it 404.75 up to about 405.70. It's about a $1 high node. Well, that's telling us the length of this is determined by the total volume over the last month of trading that happened between 407.75 or 404.75 and 405.70-ish. Okay, that happened within about that dollar range. That's how we determine the length of those nodes. Okay, Brent, does that make it better to understand the indicator? Perfect. Agariba, you like this? All right, and somebody's asking, Don, you're asking about a different indicator. I might need to discuss that in a future webcast. But anytime you have a question, does thinkorswim have a specific indicator? You can go right up to this this flask icon go down in alphabetical order and look for the indicator that you're interested in. I'll just say, usually you're probably going to find it because we have hundreds. Is every single indicator under the sun found on thinkorswim? Not yet. Nope, not at the moment. But boy, there is a depth of tools that's impressive here. Okay, so let's talk about, now that we're looking, I'm going to stick with this time frame. We've seen how the indicator adjusts to fit the selected time frame. And let's talk about how a trader might trade this. Well, they might look for low node areas. And interestingly, if we look at where price is right now, would we say that it's in a high node area, a high volume node area, or a low volume node area, relatively speaking? Well, it appears to be comparatively low. Now, if price starts to rally, a trader might actually see that as confirmation. Maybe we're going back up to the next lower, quieter area. Okay, that would be a common trade. And as a matter of fact, a common approach to this is to look at something like a 1-month chart, look at the value area, and maybe trade from the value area low to the value area high. And those should coincide with some low node ranges. Carol says, can we switch back to what the markets are doing right now? Not at the moment, Carol. I want to stay on track with the discussion, but I appreciate there may be something happening at the moment. Could be interesting. But just be aware, for a bullish trader, a common approach is to look at trading from that value area low to the value area high. However, if we escape outside that range, this is interesting. This is happening literally as we speak. If we escape outside that range and maybe we get a candle or two outside of that range, the trader may actually shift their outlook entirely and look for a bearish trade going through the next cycle. Here's what I'm talking about. I might have to zoom back out here for just a moment. So notice that here we've shifted outside of that value area. In this case, the trader might be looking for going down to waiting for another big high volume node to show up and go to the next low volume. Okay, so that might look something like this. If I were to switch my chart, let's bring it up to see if we can capture one, maybe a 3-month chart. Okay, yeah. So here we are. We're sneaking outside the value area on that 30-month chart, on that 30-day chart, and we're sneaking into the value area for the next, I don't know what I would call this. Anyway, the next high volume node area, okay? Or in other words, the next value area. So in this case, maybe that trader is looking to trade this range. Does that make sense? Moving outside of one range, trading the depth or the height of the next range. Okay? Yeah, Carol, my pleasure. So we've seen a couple of different ways that we can potentially trade this technical indicator, just value area low to high, or if we have a breakout, trade in the new direction to the next low, or if a breakout to the high, to the next high. All right, hope that makes sense. So let's go have a look at maybe some other stocks and see if we can start to train our eyes to get acquainted with this. Okay, let's stick with some of the other big companies. I think it might be useful to do that. How about Google? I think I have some drawings on Google or Alphabet. These are for a different webcast. I'm not going to erase those. Just be aware. All of this stuff is for another webcast. Don't worry about it. We're just looking at our volume profile. So where is price right now? Oh, this is interesting. Price right now is right at the point of control. What might that mean? Well, we might be at a balance point between buyers and sellers, right? When we're at that point of control, price may go up, it may go down. It might be useful to look at, well, where was it headed before? And in this case, we were headed down. And that might project that we're moving further down to the next low. You see that those low nodes right here that are also coinciding with the value area low? So in this case, the trader may look at direction of price combined with volume. Looks like a target area for, let's say, taking bearish profits or looking for a new bullish entry, maybe to get in down here at this low. All right. If price were rallying, a bullish trade may be exited right up here at these highs. If we push through, the trader might actually look to get out not at this low, but at the next one above that, after we've risen to a new high volume node. Okay. Let's see. Speak Truth says last time Google hit the point of control, it moved. Yeah. So what you're looking at here, Speak Truth, is here was a touch at the point of control level or near it, right? Point of control, very much like any other support or resistance areas, the low volume node ranges and the point of control ranges, they're not intended to be precise price levels, but rather general price areas, right? So in other words, look at this. Price ran up, got close to these lows, but was it exactly a specific point that we could have picked out on a chart? Probably not. Instead, a range. Carol says, why is the market selling off so hard? I don't know, Carol. Someone might have to look into that. I don't want to pursue a sort of a sidebar discussion at the moment, just to keep keep things focused, because hundreds of people, let's see how many people, yeah, a couple hundred people watching the live stream right now. There are going to be probably thousands that see it after the fact, and they're not going to be as interested as we are at this moment with what's happening with the markets. Okay, so let's have a look at one more maybe. Let's go to, what if we were to look at AVGO? Let's look at Broadcom. I want to zoom back out again. Let's switch this time frame. Now, by the way, one last opportunity here. Let's illustrate this again. The current volume profile is tailored to our current selection for a time frame. We're looking at a 3-month chart, so it's showing us where the concentrations of volume have been on that 3-month time frame, and thereby also where this typical trade signals might be on that time frame. And those might be support and resistance levels here, support and resistance levels here, possible support and resistance levels down here at the value area low. But if we switch this up to a longer term time frame, let's go to a 1 year, 1 day, we can see that those can change, right? Oh, I'm going to take something out here. There we go. Just noticed something that needed to be addressed in the chats. Got that taken care of. In any case, try to apply that new knowledge that you have about this brand new indicator now, and see if you can identify potential areas of support and resistance on this chart. I'm going to give you about 10 or 15 seconds, because once we've trained our eyes to see this, it may not take a lot longer than that. And where do you suppose traders may look for bullish entries, bullish exits, bearish entries, bearish exits on this chart? In other words, where are the major areas of support and resistance potentially? Okay, now that you've had a chance to look, let's talk about it. Yeah, it looks like there are some low node areas. Looks like right around that 1160 range, right? So a bullish trader here sitting in the middle of the high range, maybe they want to wait until we get down to that low node area. And interestingly, if we draw in, if we were to just assume an area of support or resistance right there, has that played out as a support and resistance in the past? Touch right at that, right just below that level as a price ceiling, a touch just above that price level as a price floor. Yeah. So if we're getting down in that range again, a trader might look to enter. Assuming they did, let's assume that price got down to this range and it starts to move higher. off of that low volume area, where might the trader then plan to take profits? Well, it might be as we get back up to this low node area. Okay. So where are some other potential areas of support and resistance? Right through here, looks like there was a low node area, also falling between a high here and a low there. Now, Kevin, okay, Kevin just says, I always looked at the larger nodes as support and resistance and the areas of low volume as the price might move faster due to little price action. Is your line of thinking off? I'm not going to say that it is entirely. Is this the only potential approach to this indicator? No. Matter of fact, typically, as one shortens the time frame, it may actually shift to that sort of application. But what I would suggest with anyone who's learning a new indicator is to bring it up on a series of charts, apply one set of logic to it. Well, let's see. Do the low node areas seem to act as support and resistance areas? Or for this chart, as I'm looking at it, do the high node areas tend to act as support and resistance? And see how it works, right? But let's see. Another low node area is right down here, the prominent one, right? And you can see as we intersect with that, yep, not when price was coming down, it tended to reverse before it hit that level. Yep. Okay, so guys, we have actually accomplished what I set out to do today. I'm glad that some of you had introduced potential for application of other approaches to this indicator. There are certainly customizations, and along the lines of a customization, why not? Let's throw one in here, because one thing I wanted to talk about, and maybe I'll go back to our original chart for this one. Let's go back to Microsoft, okay? And I'm going to switch this maybe back to our, just going to make it easier to see this. Let's go back to our 1 month chart, click OK. As we look at this, you'll notice there are some of these nodes that are comparatively thick. Some of these nodes are comparatively thin. Look at this. Here's a little tiny thin one. Here's a thicker one right here. Well, for some traders, they have a preference for the volume to be measured for precise price increments, maybe $1, something like that. They want to see this tool customized to just show us at which dollar increment are we getting the heaviest volume, and they base their support and resistance assumptions off of that customization. So yes, this is a customizable indicator, and we can do that by coming up and clicking on the Edit Studies. It's a study. We're going to edit it. So we're going to go to Edit Studies Flask. Here's the volume profile as currently constructed. And to edit it, we're going to click on the little gear icon, right? And you'll notice it has a preference right now, the price per row height mode. That's a bit of a mouthful. That's just telling us how thick each one of those nodes is. Is it a fairly high price range or a fairly narrow price range that's being measured for its volume participation? Let's switch that to just be custom, and our custom row height, I'm going to leave that at 1, which means $1. Okay, and we're just going to click OK and click Apply, and what you'll see now is each one of these is the same thickness. Each one is going to be $1 in thickness, right? Now, there are some where it's going to look like it's thicker. That's just two that are roughly of the same length stacked on top of each other. All right. But yeah, for some, they may actually view this as maybe it's a little bit easier to read. It's not going to give us quite the granularity of the automatic application of this indicator. So for better or for worse, it's kind of like going from a daily chart to a weekly chart. There's not as much information, for better or for worse. Somebody's saying, is this like VWAP? Similarities. If you want to, a lot of people here aren't going to be familiar with VWAP. We've actually covered that in recent weeks. So if you want to, you can actually just go to our channel. Matter of fact, this is something I would suggest you do anyway, because we've actually accomplished what I set out to do. We've discussed the construction of our indicator. We've talked about the potential for application, the generation of trade signals, and we looked through a series of charts to get some repetition with that. So I think it's time, if you enjoy these webcasts, we learn how that we can optimize the resources that are available to us. So I have a couple of suggestions for you. Number one, yeah, it's a little bit self-serving, but it's a great resource. If you're not following Ben Watson, Ben's helping out in chats. Thank you, Ben. Definitely appreciate it. If you're not following Ben or me on Twitter, please do that. It's a great resource. It's the best place to connect with your favorite presenters in between these webcasts. So you can find Ben on X at Ben Watson CS for Charles Schwab. At Ben Watson CS. My handle right here, it's on your screen, at Cameron May CS. I'd love to have you as a follower, but once you're following, it just makes it easier to follow along with my posts. For example, I'd love to get your input. I have a poll that I just posted about an hour ago. I want to know, for those of you who do use charts in your trading, how many technical studies or indicators do you typically have on that chart at any given time? Is it you just don't use indicators? Is it just one or two? Is it three or four? Is it more than four? That's interesting to me. All right. But yeah, Twitter's a great resource. But also, if you're enjoying our webcast series, make sure that you've subscribed to our YouTube channel. You can do that. Just go right down below the presentation window right now. Click on the subscribe button. If you've already clicked subscribe, you don't have to do that. There's also a subscribe button, down in the lower right-hand corner. You can click on that subscribe button, but that allows you to get notifications when new webcasts are released. You can also follow on our channel. You can see the playlists for our previously delivered webcasts. You can follow our live stream webcasts right here on the Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcasts YouTube channel. We'd love to have you there as a follower. And of course, or as a subscriber, and of course, it helps our channel out. We're delivering this education free of charge. We just want to reach the widest audience possible, so that would help that effort. Everybody, thanks. But it's time for me to let you loose. I don't see a survey, so maybe not this time. But yeah, when you see a survey, it's always appreciated if you fill that out. Thanks, Ben, for helping out. Time for me to let you go, but we have introduced the indicator. We've talked about how it might be used for trade signals in the planning of short-term stock trade, and we've looked at examples. So it's check, check, check. Guys, we have lots of education still to come. Go enjoy the rest of the day's webcasts. If you want to see me in a future webcast, I have something new Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of each week on a fill-in basis, sometimes Thursday, sometimes Friday, but every Monday through Wednesday. So I'd love to see you in those webcasts. I'll look for you there. I'll also look for you on X. But hey, I also want to say thank you for the 150 people still watching the live stream right now. 43 have already clicked the like button. That's really appreciated. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you're on the live stream, if you want to click the like button, if you appreciate the webcast, sounds like applause to me when you do that. If you're watching the archive, go ahead and click that like button anyway. It works just as well. It helps our channel just as much, and I actually see it. I go and look at that stuff. So thank you for doing that. Everybody, enjoy the rest of the webcast. I'll see you in a future webcast of my own. I will look for you on X, but whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.